4.
Well, this one most definitely holds a special place in my heart.
As it should, and not just because you play Trunks in our series. History of Trunks is the tale of the titular character's haunted, apocalyptic future, where the androids have wreaked havoc, and it's up to this timeline's Gohan and him to save what's left of their world.
Easily one of the bleakest, darkest entries on the list. A good portion of the movie is spent on the androids destroying the cities, terrorizing people, and basically just having the time of their lives as they bring death everywhere they go.
But it's also about the developing relationship between Trunks and Gohan, and the growth of Trunks into the young man we see in the series. It's by no means perfect, and suffers from questionable logic in a few places, but its subject matter and willingness to delve into such a depressing, dark subject really helps it stand out.
There really is almost no feature like this on the list, with the exception of the next special, and it's definitely a classic in the franchise, featuring one of the best Super Saiyan transformations in the series.
Dark, emotional, and expanding upon the lore of the universe, History of Trunks is one of the finest contributions into the history of Dragon Ball. Which, again, could very well be said about the next entry on the list.
3.
Remember how we talked about episode of Bardock completely missing the point of Bardock's character? Well, here's the special that really gives you the down and dirty. And boy, is it both down and dirty.
Bardock, the father of Goku, is a member of the Saiyan squadron employed by the tyrannical overlord Frieza, meant to conquer planets in order to sell them off under Frieza's bidding. However, when a routine mission goes awry, he finds himself given the power to see the future, and the future isn't very bright.
Well, except for the explosion of his planet. Probably want to wear shades for that one. Unless you're Frieza, in which case, just enjoy the fireworks.
This special is really fascinating because it has no trouble thrusting you into the meat of the action, giving you a brief introduction to Baby Goku and then switching immediately over to Bardock, well, doing his job. A job he seems particularly happy doing.
Yeah, see, the Saiyans always seem pretty content to mercilessly slaughter the inhabitants of whatever planet Frieza pointed them to, and Bardock is no different. He's a violent, self-serving asshole whose only real concern outside of his own safety seems to be his crew.
His own son is a write-off in his eyes due to his measly power level, and he seems proud of how well he and his team do their jobs. And that's what makes him a fascinating character. Bardock isn't a good person, he's just the protagonist.
Don't let the English dub fool you either. Until the very end of this film, Bardock is a stone-cold killer out to stop Frieza from destroying his race. At no point does he repent, he merely finds solace in knowing that Goku will carry on the legacy of the Saiyans and defeat Frieza.
So the march to the end of days for Bardock is a sordid, depressing tale that we all know will end in tragedy, at least for Bardock and the Saiyans. And the action and drama on display here are fantastic.
Long story short, this is one of the most tragic stories in the entire series, told with a completely atypical protagonist that expands the lore of the franchise. It definitely earns its spot in the top 3.
Now, let's return to some more light-hearted fare, shall we?
I'm so excited!
2.
Yes!
Okay, while Kaiser is busy fangirling in the back, let's talk about how World's Strongest made it to number 2 on this list. The premise opens with Gohan and Oolong searching for the Dragon Balls. What they come across is the evil Dr. Cochin, who's already gathered the orbs to thaw the frozen overlayer of his master, Dr. Wheelo.
The evil scientist, reduced to nothing but his brain, is seeking out a new body to inhabit, the world's strongest man. When he erroneously assumes it to be Master Roshi, his sights turn to Goku after Bulma accidentally spills the beans.
This movie is one of the only ones on the list that steals almost nothing of its premise from the series. Dr. Wheelo is an entirely new villain, top to bottom, and his bio-warriors are only somewhat similar to the androids in Dragon Ball beforehand. Hell, an evil scientist reduced to a brain utilizing artificially created warriors to hunt down Goku? It's like a rough draft for the Android saga.
Although, one thing this movie does rip whole hog is the design of the Biomen. It's like, what, did they think we'd suddenly forget what Cybermen look like? Hell, Piccolo even kills one of them in the exact same way.
Yeah, but besides the familiar Kamehameha battle near the end and obligatory Spirit Bomb win, that's where the similarities stop, and what we're left with is a beautifully animated original plot about Goku having to save not only his friends, but his kinda sorta rival? From the clutches of Dr. Wheelo. Hell, even Master Roshi gets in on the action, in a big way.
And we are treated to not just some of the best fighting in the series, but inventive action sequences that really play to the strengths of that old animation style. The game of death progression to Wheelo's compound is so engaging, and the fight against Piccolo? Absolutely worth every second. And they even managed to fit in Gohan's rage boost in an inventive manner.
Jesus, Kaiser, if you love this movie so much, why don't you just abridge it?
Maybe I will! 2 million subscribers, bitches! You heard me! That's when we'll do World's Strongest!
Well, you heard it here first, folks. If you haven't seen World's Strongest yet, fix that. Immediately.
Before we cover our number 1, let's go over some honorable mentions.
Yeah, sure, we understand there might be a little bit of blowback for this pick, but we do stand by this choice 100%.
Some of you might believe that this is because it's one of the newer movies, and thus we think it's better because of it. But considering Plan to Eradicate the Super Saiyans is all the way near the bottom of the list, sitting right next to Episode of Bardock, I hope it's apparent that that isn't the case.
Battle of Gods was the first to be widely considered canon by the fanbase, and the first film period in over 17 years.
It's all about the god of destruction, Lord Beerus, who has awakened from his extensive slumber early due to a premonition that a strong warrior would soon present themselves to challenge him. A Super Saiyan god. His assistant Whis instructs him that the only possible candidates reside on Earth, with the exception of Goku, on King Kai's.
What we're presented with is a franchise first, a film that expands the canon lore of the series, expands the story, and gives us legitimate character development.
One of our biggest gripes with the films is how the characters barely change from beginning to end, and it never honestly feels like the events of the story have left any real impact on them. Here, though, we see Goku's cockiness lead to a humiliating defeat, expressions of frustration with the God power-up, and an exploration into his character that no other movie provides.
Even better, Vegeta is taken full advantage of here, both showing his development since the Buu saga by openly embarrassing himself to the end of saving his family and newly accepted home, and by showing his devotion to his wife? In the form of one of the film's most satisfying sequences.
But maybe most groundbreaking about this film is the villain. Another sticking point with the films is their lack of real character to be found with any of the villains. Beerus, on the other hand, he's one of the best villains in the franchise. Period.
He's complex, intimidating, but most of all, hilarious! He swings between wildly immature and impeccably cool at the drop of a hat. His casual attitude mixed with bouts of rage alone would make him stand out, but it's all pulled together by the immense power and authority he exudes in every scene. His introduction alone is enough to sell you on him. He's not afraid to be silly, but there's nobody you want to cross less. And let's not even get started on Whis and how he plays into the overall story. Hell, he's one of the reasons Resurrection F was as good as it was. He's a character unlike the entire franchise has ever seen. Both him and Beerus own every scene they're in. Now, if only these guys had gotten just a little less screen time.
Yeah, while they definitely work in their scenes while interacting with other characters, on their own, these three are boring and completely pointless.
But that's a small price to pay for a film that set a bright, shiny new standard for Dragon Ball films.
And that's it, folks. Thank you so much for joining us for another DBcember as we expressed our love and other emotions for the long, wild ride through the series-long list of movies and specials.
It was a ton of fun returning to all of them, and we'd absolutely love to get your feedback on this list in the comments below.
But for now, sayonara, and have a happy DBcember.